production figures. Okay, and then the blue one is export figures. How can you export what you don't produce? So who is lying here? Who is lying here? Is there an undervalue of production? Why? Because the tax made is 2% excise, which is based on your production. Who is lying here? I don't lie, Jerry. You know, I've been around. And let me just, next one, Ronel. Look at this. This is the revenue figures, the revenue effort. Okay, all the mining company gives is 2% excise. But if you look at the potential excise tax which is going to be collected, that's the red. And the green is what you actually do. You only give 2% excise, and even that, you don't give fully. Next slide. So who is lying here? And then this is the truth. These are figures. Okay, this is, you only give 2% excise, and out of that, if you look at the total pie of excise tax, the excise tax that the mining companies gives is the red one. So in the sphere of what we get in the general scheme of things, how much do we benefit from mining? Lastly, I would like to say that I don't lie, you know. I go around to the islands, and the suffering that's being caused by the mining companies to the farmers, to the fishermen is real. And lastly, I'd like to say that the tenement operation, which you say is so little, but what's the impact of that? You know, you go to Surigao and the impact of that to the rice fields, to the sea. What is that? Yes, your operations is small, but what's the impact? If mining, I will repeat it again, if mining is so good, then why are the poorest areas in the country mining areas? The fruit in the pudding. The key to the fruit is in the pudding. Where's the pudding? You know, where is the, and I asked one gentleman who was high up in the mining sector, and I asked him, name me one place, please name me one place in the Philippines which has been fully rehabilitated, which is rich, the people are well, the people are happy, and then he said none. So why are we doing this when there is no track record to speak of? That is the question.
Okay, it must be, the room is jam-packed, so it must be the temperature. It's getting hotter and hotter here. The issue. Next panelist, the president of Finex, Mr. Ramon Opulencia. Please stand up, okay?
Thank you, Grace. First, on behalf of Finex, the MAP, and the PCCI, I'd like to thank all our speakers for coming over and giving their views on the topic. In this regard, I'd like to address my question to Director Leo Hasareno. We have heard of the inadequacy of government structures in addressing many mining issues, and I understand that in the past, the Minerals Development Council was a proactive, independent forum instituted to thresh out mining industry problems and challenges. However, after its abolition, I'd like to ask what initiatives are being taken to address the gap left by this council, which acted really as a clearinghouse for public-private sector concerns, arriving at a win-win solution for the overall national interest. Thank you.
The issue of whether or not we should revive the MDC is now an issue being taken up in the mining study group. If you have seen the leaked version of the draft EO, it provides there that there is supposed to be a council with the acronym MIDAS. Unfortunately, this proposed provision in the draft EO met stiff resistance from many, including the industry. And there is now another school of thought that proposed organization named MIDAS Council may have to be reinvented to somehow follow what the MDC has started. So it's work in progress. Basically, there is that proposition that there has to be such a council.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Philip Romualdez, your turn.
Thank you. I'd like to ask a question to Director Hasareno. It seems to me, listening to all the issues, that there needs to be a distinction between large scale and small scale. And I appreciate the comment of Mr. Chris Monso that somehow small scale should have been discussed. 52% of gold sales are actually from the small scale, or more than 52% of output exports are, which are central bank included, is small scale related. Yet, we know the national government has not received 1 centavo of excise tax or income tax from any of the small scale activities. Is that, now, my question really is we don't seem to hear any complaints from the church, the NGOs, about small-scale illegal mining. Because, as you said, there are close to 300,000 small-scale operators in the country compared to 31 operating mines. But yet, all the attention seems to be directed to large-scale mining. My question then is, what is government doing or going to do about small-scale mining, which will not mention which cabinet secretary mentioned this to me, said small-scale mining is the new weteng. So what are you in government going to do about this issue? Because it seems to me this is the real issue. There is no exploration, there is no monitoring regulation of any sort for small-scale illegal mining. When it comes to environmental pollution, there is no rehab issues. There is no tax issue. In fact, when the central bank was imposed by the BIR to collect withholding tax, all the small-scale miners, I think that's why we saw in the newspaper today a 24% drop in central bank sales. Well, that is because all of that gold is now being smuggled out of the country. So what is government going to do about this issue?
First, Philip, the latest figure is that of the 32 tons of gold produced by the country, 68% comes from small-scale mining. 68%. 68. And you are correct.
Can you please repeat that, Director? How much percentage?
Of the gold production of the country,
Okay.
the latest figure of which is about 30 tons of gold.
Okay.
About 68% comes from small-scale mining.
68%.
68%. And Mr. Romales is correct. When the central bank started collecting withholding tax and excise tax, the sales dropped by about 72%. 72%.
That's a revelation.
Yeah. And the government is very much aware of the dangers about small-scale mining. In fact, in some cabinet meetings, there are proposals that small-scale mining be stopped completely. But after thorough evaluation and discussion of issues, and taking into account the fact that the major stakeholders of small-scale mining in the country are the poor people, supported by financiers, Hindi pa ako tapos. And government very well recognizes that if the proposal will be approved, this is not to preempt the president, the small-scale mining will be rationalized and basically it will be limited to Minahang Bayan, where government will be able to put up custom mills or processing plants so that the small-scale miners will be given assistance in terms of making the operation clean, and also to make possible providing for financing so that they can be freed from the controls and influence of private people who finance the small-scale mining operations, but they just stay in the back and are insulated from the risks of mining. Hopefully, and then government, particularly MGB, DOST, TESDA, may come in to provide for the necessary technical assistance. And of course, more importantly, to capacitate the local government units. Government think that if this can be done, we can at least address 50% of the problem on small-scale mining. We still insist that the major culprit of the problem on small-scale mining is the continuing recognition or implementation of the two small-scale mining laws. We think that an efficient small-scale mining operation would be possible only under Republic Act number 7076.
Okay, now we have the Vice Chair of MAP National Issues Committee, Mr. Enriga.
I've received a long question from
Can you shorten it, please?
I will,
Thank you.
because this is pretty long, so I have to paraphrase. This is from the concerned residents of West Tower Condominium and Bangkal in Makati. Well, the reason this being asked is because of environmental. This question is being asked of Ms. Lopez. That it says, we are aware of your active involvement in environmental and ecological concerns, but there is a catastrophe in Makati affecting the company, involving the company of your family. In light of this, what has your family's company done?
Ms. Lopez? Gina.
Well, I would like to have you know that my family is currently spending hundreds of millions of pesos to fix the unfortunate accident, and they have committed to clean it from 3 to 5 years, and that's much more than the mining companies have done with their abandoned mines. Secondly, we have abandoned mines in the country. Is there a commitment to clean it? Secondly, I thought this was all about mining issues. In what way? I mean, is this the way you fight the mining issue, by hitting my family? Now, where is the what here? Is this what you're going to do? I mean, I thought we were talking about mining here, no? Is that the ethics and the integrity in which you pursue your truth?
Okay. You know,
I fully agree with Ms. Lopez. That was an improper question from some people who have no right to have asked it.
okay. Now, Dr. Claudio.
This is more interesting than the impeachment process. I have 3 challenges to the mining industry and a couple of questions addressed both to the government and the mining industry. First is on legacy mines, which was mentioned earlier. Discussion...
Excuse me. We can only entertain one question.
Yeah, it's a challenge, so it's not a question.
Okay.
Be kind to me, Grace.
Okay.
This is environmental impact is the first major issue here that we have been talking about. One is the legacy mines. So far, the discussion has been on current and future work that is being done or has to be done. But we have, in my last count, about 30 abandoned or closed mine sites. That is not the fault of the mining industry as it now stands. But this is a global problem, not only a problem in the Philippines. And so the challenge to the mining industry is if we cannot do anything about it, and the government definitely cannot, it's just the mining industry, if it cannot, then let us bring it, let's lead the campaign to bring it to the attention of the UN and have something similar to the Global Environment Facility. But in the meantime, I think we can look at one of them and convert them into a profitable ecotourism destination, just like the Butchart Gardens in Victoria or Phuket in Thailand. The second challenge is on recyclable metals, which constitute about, I think it has the highest volume of recyclable exports in this country. Is that part of the mining industry? And if not, can we look at that and see what can be done to process them instead of exporting them? And the third challenge is that we have been claiming that mining companies are good, and I agree that there are several that are. May I challenge you to join the annual MAP CSR Awards and ensure that in next year's competition, one of you will win it. Okay, my question. As an engineer and technologist, those are challenges. My question is,
What exactly is your question?
as an engineer and technologist, I always have the position that mining can be made safe with two caveats. One is there is a cost to do so, both in terms of resources and governance. And number two is there are small islands that are blessed with both minerals and natural beauty, that there must be a societal choice, clear societal choice to make it either a mining site or an ecotourism destination, because it is extremely difficult and costly to do both. So my question now is on governance. What is the capability of the DENR now, even with the proposal of Mr. Pangilinan to spin off EMP, to address all of these issues that you have so well identified? What help do you need from us? Because I think it's about time that we do something about this. Just maybe spinning off, or maybe a multi-sectoral body is needed to go over this. And then to the mining industry, what are you doing to help also the DENR to process 500 applications, I think, when most of them will not be approved anyway? We just need some help to be able to process them.
Okay. Director?
On the part of the government, admittedly, government lacks resources. The lack of technical men is public knowledge. In fact, the freeze on hiring is still on, while people in government retire, resign. We are not allowed to hire, and that is a reality. However, government is well aware of that, and it's putting up resources to address that. And we also think that the private sector has a role to play. It will always be under the scheme of partnership between government and the private sector. And most of all, I think vigilance on the part of the private sector is very important. Vigilance.
Okay. Mr. Monso would like to react or to ask a question?
I think we've been talking about how the law is being implemented poorly, and part of that was answered by Leo. But I think I also heard that we have a perfect mining law. It's not true that we have a perfect mining law. I'll tell you why. Just one issue. It may be an oversight, but you know, we talk about rehabilitation. There's progressive remediation during mining, and then there's a final rehabilitation fund. Now, what is that final rehabilitation fund? Final rehabilitation fund is supposed to handle the capital costs of rehabilitation, like land restoration and reforestation. There is nothing in the law about a perpetual accountability or trust funds for the maintenance of structures like the tailings dams or the disasters that could happen years later. These risks are not borne by the miners. These risks are borne by the taxpayers. Now, this is, if I'm wrong, please correct me. But I'd like to hear from Leo Jasareno if this is true, that the final rehabilitation fund is for capital cost. There is no maintenance trust fund. So 3 years later, if there's a break in that dam, the taxpayers pay for it. Is this true?
The Mining Act provides for a final mine rehabilitation decommissioning fund. It's a fund wherein which is supposed to answer the cost required to put up a final mine rehabilitation and decommissioning plan. For instance, if a mine would want the mined out area to be transformed into a resort, if the mined out area will be a lake, then that mine is supposed to submit a plan containing the budget for putting up the lake. And that fund has to be deposited front-loaded so that at some point in the operating period of the mine, that fund is already available. And so that whatever happens to the mine later on, government will be left with a fund that will take care of the rehabilitation. However, when we have looked at the mine rehabilitation plan of mining operators, as contained in their FMRDP, most of these funds are limited to capital cost. And that raises the issue of whether or not of how post-mining maintenance will be done when the fund would not provide for continuing maintenance. There is also the issue of perpetual liability. We have recognized that because, as we all know, mining projects will live permanent in price structures. For instance, if a big mine like Tampakan will operate and then leave after the reserve is exhausted, it will leave behind big in price structures like a big open pit or a TSF. And the question is, since these are permanent in price structures, which will stay in the land perpetually, the answer is, who takes care of their maintenance perpetually? This, if you look at the regulations, this issue is not squarely confronted. And so I submit that this is a policy gap. And when I say that, it means that government is ready to face the issue. We think that the provision that periodically the FMRDP will be revisited so that the mining contractor and government will talk and agree of how the continuing maintenance will be implemented, then somehow we have a template of how perpetual liability will be addressed. But today, again, I will say, the issue of perpetual liability is a policy issue.
Okay. Okay, Gina Lopez.
This is not in connection, so I think I'm subverting, but I really have to say this. Because when Manny Pangilinan, you said that the areas that are going to be mined are ugly anyway, that is so not true. You know, it's not true that the areas that are going to be mined are ugly. You can't do anything there anyway. I'll tell you about Sibuyan. Sibuyan has the world's densest forest, the country's cleanest inland body of water. And yet, the mining tenement was approved there, on the top of agricultural land. I have been to Brooks Point. I can drink the river and the water in that stream, and yet the government has approved $1 billion worth of mining in that place. So when you say that the areas that, and I have all these people that come to my office, when you say that all these mining tenement places are in areas that are ugly anyway, I really think you need to go and visit it.
Manny, would you like to react?
Well, Gina, have you been to Padcal? Have you been to Silangan in Surigao del Norte? Who would go there and develop a tourism site? There's nothing there. When we, as Jerry pointed out, I wasn't there, but I think when his father entered Philex in Padcal, it was deforested, denuded. Since that time, we've planted 7 million trees in that thing, right? And, you know, we have a self-contained community. We provide free housing, free hospitals, free education up to high schools. What else can we do? And we do, Christian. We have a post-rehab plan.
We set aside each year an amount of money because one day that mine will close. There's a post-rehab plan that we have. Whether by law or not, we do. We care about the people at some point when these guys have to fend for themselves after the mine.
Gina,
one last,
wait,
one last.
let
2
me-
seconds, 2 seconds.
Wait.
I just want to say that I'm not. 2 seconds, can I say? Short, just really short. I just want to say
Wait.
that when I say I'm not. Maybe that place is nice, and I submit it may be nice. Okay, but I mean, it's not nice, and maybe that there could have been mining there. But when you make a statement that all the areas where there's going to be mining are ugly anyway, that's the point.
Gina,
So that's.
I
okay.
did not say that. Now you're lying.
Wow! It's really getting hotter and hotter in this room. So let me call on Mr. Eduardo Yap. I like this. This is the most interesting business forum we have ever organized for the past 5 years. Okay? Come on, Ed. Can we please practice sobriety?
Yeah, we don't want-
We are all cultured people.
We don't
here.
want an open-ended and running debate, so what we'll do is control the mic,
Okay.
if you don't mind.
Okay, Ed. Remember, we're all cultured people here.
I'll give way to Adele, Lady Adele.
Okay.
Yeah.
A brief comment on what Director Hasareno
Adele is
mentioned.
a chair of the Phoenix Environment Committee. Yes, Adele.
Maybe the 3 to 5% mandated allocation for the, I can't memorize this one, for the annual environment protection and enhancement program can be redirected partly for your budget or something. Meaning, what I'm saying is that, for example, mining companies are required 3 to 4%, and then they're also required 1% of their direct milling and mining costs for the infrastructure and so forth. The community can absorb only so much. Meaning, for example, Philex has been there for 40 years. You cannot be building schools every year and so forth. Maybe those funds can be placed in an endowment fund with, although it mentions here a trust fund, that can take care of the future liabilities. No? So that's a comment. Or maybe in the review it can be considered. My question is very
Okay, go direct to the question.
Okay, direct to the point. This is addressed to Mr. Wakes and to the mining companies.
Okay.
Actually, one of the critical concerns in mining operation is how to dispose of the mining tailings, mine tailings. No, normally what you do is contain it in a mega dam, and you wait for evaporation, sedimentation to take care, but it will take years, hundreds of years, and so forth. So maybe, I don't know if you have considered in the sustainable mining strategy, having these microorganisms, no? I think there are scientific findings already in Russia, in the States, during the oil spill in the States, no? They use microorganisms to eat this. There are microorganisms that thrive on arsenic, no? So these things can be explored so that we solve this problem naturally. So that's my, actually it's not really a question. But
Any
anyway.
reaction from the mining industry? It was directed to the mining industry.
Yes. Hi.
Are you answering the question of Gina? Of Adele?
I'm answering the...
Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
so you're answering for the mining industry.
Yes.
Okay.
I also am the president of the Chamber of Mines.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Very well taken.
Okay. No, actually, on the point of Adele, it's a very relevant point. In fact, today, because of technology, years past, firstly, let's understand, what are mine tailings? Mine tailings are what was once considered during operations uneconomic ore, meaning you couldn't make money out of it, therefore you set it aside. In fact, Rio Tuba is precisely submitting to the processing plant, Coral Bay, ore that was once considered waste. Therefore, it is now, because of technology, being economically processed for the good of everybody. So that is now being undertaken. Today, there are many projects that are being studied to precisely reprocess mine tailings that was once considered waste. Due to better technology, today in recovery, due to higher metal prices, all of these tailings are now being reviewed. I, for one, can speak straightly about that because our company, Benguet, is undertaking today a gold tailings reprocessing project. Things that that we had mined, say, 30 years ago, is now actually valuable and can be processed. In fact, it's the best form of mining. If you can call it, it's green mining. So yes, there is a way, and because of technology and economics, we can continue to do this. So mine tailings don't necessarily have to be a problem, and in fact, can become very profitable and beneficial to all communities.
Okay. Thank you very much. The last panelist, Mr. Ed Yap, the chair of the Phoenix National Affairs Committee. Ed?
Okay, I don't mind being the last.
But not the least.
Thank you. One thorny issue is the share of the government in the mining revenue. President Aquino apparently is not satisfied with the share he's getting, and this is amplified by Secretary Cesar Purisima. The government wants a fair share of mining revenue. Mr. Pangilinan said in his speech that the government is entitled to an appropriate share of mining revenue. So it looks like both sides agree that the government should get more. Now, to cite as an example, mining companies operating under mineral production sharing agreements pay a royalty of from 1% for the first 3 years to a maximum of 2% to the government. While the sub-mining companies pay royalty to private companies to the extent of 5 to 7% to mine in the property of mining companies. Perhaps the government is thinking that it should be the other way around. Government getting 5 to 7% rather than just 1 to 2%. Now, may I ask Mr. Pangilinan to share with us his thoughts on what he thinks is an appropriate share of the government in the mining revenue.
Mr. Manny Pangilinan?
Well, my understanding of the FTA arrangement is such that 50% of the profit before tax is shared between the government and the owner of the mine, developer of the mine. No? And the 50% share of government covers all taxes that are due to the government. Now, I think, it is just a personal view, a sharing like that should extend as well to the MPSA. I mean, you're mining the same resource. It's just a different form and ownership requirement that differentiates the MPSA between FPSA and FTAA. But the activity is the same, right? You mine the same, similar resource. And you have the same thing in Malampaya. I understand it's in the case of Malampaya, it's 60% in favor of the government and 40% in favor of the developer. Now, bear in mind, the business model is such that the developer, whether you're exploiting oil and gas or minerals, takes the front-end risk. When you go into a mine, I mean, of course, techniques have developed. At the end of the day, you don't know what's inside. You don't know. So the developer takes the front-end risks, and the government has very little money in the venture, right? So if there's no gold or copper or oil or gas underneath, the government doesn't say, I will reimburse you for your cost. It's saying, I will reimburse you over the mine, over the life of the mine or the life of the field, and after that, after each year, after you recover your OPEX and your CAPEX, your exploration costs, that's where the share should come in. And, you know, that's a formula that's quite standard already. Right? So that's what I meant by, I think the industry should be open to that sort of thing. You know? Now, the other issue relates to the sharing between the national government and local government. Most of the taxes we pay go to the national government. Now, there's got to be a more equitable sharing between the two, because the resource, after all, is located in that particular locality. And the people in that locality benefit to a large degree from what's mined in that particular locality. Now, as to the sharing, we don't have a view, because that's really between the two units of government, right? I mean, we could express a view, but at the end of the day, it should be between the two of them. Now, what we'd like to do is to be able to remit directly under some law or regulation or formula how much the local government is entitled to. Because if it goes up, then goes down, we understand it takes a while for the money to flow back to the local community. And I think that's not fair. You know? So if you could remit directly to the local government, that's better for us. And even for the IPs, we remit to some DATU or something, and we don't know whether it flows into the IPs directly. So sometimes we get criticized because some of the IPs complain that they don't get the benefit. But is that our job? Is that our job? Of course, we try to police it ourselves, but at the end of the day, we have no way of knowing. We remit close to 200 million a year for the IPs in Padcal. Now, as to where the money goes specifically, we don't know.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Just a follow-up, Grace, to the statement.
Can we first...
A related issue to that is the timing of the payment.
Mr. react first before you ask another question?
Well, one of the fundamental problems is that very often the raw material is passed overseas and the added value is done overseas. If you take Extrata in the Champacan mine, 350,000 ounces of gold a year will be produced and 375,000 tons of copper. Total value of that is somewhere around £3 billion. How does the government get its share of that when the added value is overseas? And this is happening in many countries at the present moment.
Yeah, I need to react to that because I come from the industry.
Okay.
Okay, first and foremost, let us understand the rationale of the laws. Most of you may not realize this or be too young. In 1995, the mining law was passed after deliberations that started in 1987, post the new constitution. The rationale for crafting a law was to look at the minerals industry on how to revive it. The industry was essentially dead, if not dying. Therefore, there was a need to see how to increase investments and incentives to make the industry grow again, because at one point, just several years earlier, it was precisely providing 24% of foreign exchange. Therefore, lawmakers went through 7 years of crafting a law that decided that there needs to be a distinction between local investors, where MPSAs are, which are mineral production sharing agreements, are lodged, 60% of which will be required to be Filipino, a maximum of 40%. And it was in that rationale that the Filipinos should be given some distinction and advantage over financial technical assistance agreements that would be including 100% foreign ownership, wherein in those agreements, 50-50 was the sharing. Under the mineral production sharing agreement, which is lodged 60% by Filipinos, the sharing mechanism today is roughly 42% going to the government. Therefore, there is the slight advantage for the fact that it's a Filipino interest that is moving the project forward. So that is the basic rationale. Well, with regards to Mr. Wick's comment, I mean, we're talking apples and oranges. We're talking about, he wants to talk about downstreaming. Well, that's a whole different issue, ladies and gentlemen. Who in this room doesn't want to have industry, doesn't want to have downstream industries? We would love that. However, the Philippine government needs to provide the right business atmosphere so that we can have market forces decide if we can be competitive. How can we precisely put up processing plants and compete with China, Japan, Korea when we are the highest country in terms of power rates? Now, you tell me, if you can put more business under that mechanism, I'd be more than happy to find a way. Thank you very much.
Okay, now we will Let's give a round of applause to our panelists. Now we will only entertain 2 questions from the floor because of time constraint. Definitely we will have a part 2. Please wait to be acknowledged. So as I acknowledge you, please identify yourself and the company that you're affiliated with, and please refrain from doing any monologues. Yes, Miss Lady, the blue blouse. Yes, there's a microphone there.
Thank you very much. I am Senaida Hamada Pawit.
Senaida
Chair Hamada Pawit,
okay.
Of the Chair of the National Commission on Indigenous Peoples.
Okay.
I cannot but speak up because I may never see your power faces ever again. Thank you for the chance to pay, to meet all of you, to see the face of the mines. Thank you for the opportunity to listen to academic discourse way above our heads. Thank you for the opportunity to hear things that we may never understand.
Ma'am, what is exactly your question?
Yes, give me this opportunity. I may never have it. And I speak for the indigenous peoples whose lands will be mined, whose homes will be destroyed, and we may never be given that opportunity. The lands are there, the mines are there, the waters are there. We are there. We kept them there. Then all of a sudden, one morning, we see that we're driven out. The challenge to all of you this afternoon in this hall, give us a chance to be heard. We have not been invited to any of the mining fora. We have been told that we are the thorn in the side of the mining industry. You don't hear us. You don't see us. And in this room, including Mr. Austin, who is the president of the Felix Mines, there are, I am sure, not more than a dozen of us IPs. So we ask this afternoon, give us your ears, give us your hearts, and take away all the biases and prejudices that you have, so that,
please,
Madam,
go direct to the question.
Yes,
please.
If you please, there is many a slip between the cup and the lip. Thank you.
I think you should say that she's the head of NCIP.
Hi. Okay, can I respond for the industry? Okay. First and foremost, I'm not aware of any forum that IPs were not invited. In fact, may I state for the record, the various forums around the country, led by Ateneo, School of Government in Naga or wherever, we were banned from those forums. We have never been, in fact, in the mining forums, mining industry is in fact not even invited. That's why we were coming out with those advertisements some months ago. I would like to point out for the record, and I'm sure the secretariat for the 4 secretariats that's supposed to come up with the mining policy, the 2 hours that we were given, the mining industry, in consultation with the 4 secretaries, pales into comparison to the 18 hours that the anti-mining side was given. So I'm not quite sure if the voice of the IPs that you claim, ma'am, is not being widely heard. Thank you very much.
Okay. So, one last question. Oh, you want to react? Okay. Okay. First, a reaction from our speaker. Yeah.
I just wanted to say that when I was asked to participate here, I asked the question, is NCIP invited? Is Department of Agriculture invited? And is the small miner, are the small miners invited? And I was told that the program was already full. So they were not invited to this forum. But I'm glad to hear that there will be a part 2.
Yes, definitely.
And I'm very happy that they might be heard. I just want to make a point before we close. The question that is addressed to DNR is, if DNR does not have the institutional capability, nor the standard for evaluating economic cost, nor do they have the people, nor do they have the personnel experts, how do they approve mining projects? That's number one. Number two, it is true that there is a proposal for technical total economic valuation, as mentioned by Mr. Pangilinan here. There is also a proposal of WAVES. It's called Wealth Accounting, and it is an initiative of the World Bank. And the Philippines, they want the Philippines to be one of the 6 to 10 pilot countries in order to do this. Now, what is wealth? Wealth is a combination of technical, total economic valuation and natural resource accounting. And we would like to ask the mining industry to please consider this, because the DNR cannot evaluate mining projects without the analytical tools and without the people. So that's what we're asking. Thank you.
Okay.
Grace, very short comment on
Yeah,
that.
Lorna.
Just
yeah. Okay.
Well, Gina.
Yes, Attorney Kapunan?
Let me say I love you, Gina.
We have so
And
many
I know
love stories here.
And I know you love the truth as well. I also know that you love the flora and fauna. Unfortunately, in West Tower, Barangay Bangkal, it is not flora and fauna. So we would like you to please find out the truth, because the whole underlying principle of this whole convention is corporate responsibility. Whether you are in the mining industry, whether you are FPIC, and that is the challenge to you, Gina. Find out the truth. Your people are lying to you. Thank you.
Okay. We'd like, as I said, we will have a part 2 because our time is up. And
One more.
Can I just wait a minute? I have I'm sorry.
Excuse me.
I got instructions from our acting president.
Excuse me. Could I have also the floor?
Excuse me, wait. Ed Lacson, they are clamoring for. I have to ask
Excuse
permission.
me. I'm an IP also. I'm an IP.
Okay, I have to ask permission from the presidents, from the 2 Eds and Ramon Opulencia, from the 3 presidents. Okay, so are we extending for another 5 minutes?
Yes.
Okay.
That will be the last, because we still have some.
Okay, so last. Okay.
This is in relation to the comment of Chairman Pawit. I'm also an IP, and I rose from the ranks.
Your name is?
Eulalio Austin.
From what company?
Philex Mining Corporation.
Okay.
And I would assure Chairman Pawit that while we look into responsible mining, we look also into the rights of my fellow IPs. That's an assurance, Mr. Commissioner Pawit.
Okay, so no more. And we'd like to thank everyone for the success of this afternoon's forum. And after all, cooperation is the way to success. And thank you, my dear audience, for being very cooperative. Watch for the part 2. At this point, I'd like to call on our 3 business leaders, our acting president, Ed Lacson of PCCI, the MAP president, Ed Francisco, and Ramon Opulencia, the Phoenix president, to give the token of appreciation to our guest speakers. Can we call on stage our guest speakers? Call all the guest speakers. Watch out for our part 2, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. For the photo op. Okay, the 3 presidents. Can we call all the guest speakers on stage for the photo op? award the token of appreciation. We call on our PCCI President, MOP President, and Phoenix for the guest speaker. Okay, the photo up. Thank you very much.
The conference on mining's impact in Philippine economy and ecology has just ended, and that was truly a heated and interesting debate here. We heard the various sides. We heard 3 anti-mining speakers and 3 pro-mining speakers. Environmentalists like Gina Lopez mentioned that the priority here is preserving, the unique ecosystems and biodiversity that the Philippines has, while advocates of mining, such as Manny Pangilinan, said that there can be healthy compromise between mining and sustainable development. With me is Rappler Business Editor Lala Armando to help us make sense of today's conference. Good afternoon, Lala.
Yes, we do have to make sense of what happened, because there was just some heated argument over there. It became very personal between two of the representatives of the biggest conglomerates in the Philippines. But our goal is to go back to the very basics. At the end of the day, why is this important? As I mentioned a while ago, hopefully this event would be a voice that the palace would hear when it's trying to craft its new mining policies. Remember, this Aquino government would like to implement some reforms as far as the mining industry is concerned, and they'd like to have a say about it.
Is it usually this intense? Is it usually this heated? Is this the first? Tell us, because this is obviously not the first time they've had a conference like this, but I believe that things really did get heated. Is this usual?
Oh yeah, it's not usual. It's actually historic. I was tweeting about it, that it's historic to see Gina Lopez, a member of the Lopez family, and Mr. Manny Pangilinan of Felix Mining have a face-off like that. Just a background, the two groups, the two families, actually it's the group of Manny Pangilinan and Gina Lopez are together in Meralco. They have an alliance. It's a business alliance, but it's just a treat to journalists like us to see them have a face-off like that in front of these many people.
Well, part of their argument was basically contradictory information that each of them presented during their speech. The biggest one being that mining communities are poor, says the critics, but the advocate says that is not real. That is not true, rather. Is there any, what are the strongest arguments of each side that you would say is undebatable, or are all of the issues that they brought forth controversial?
All the issues are controversial, from poverty to how much the government is really making out of this industry. It's just that they were looking at it from different angles. That's why if you notice, when someone would say, okay, I had experience, or my friends have experiences of being killed or some crime done on them, the other side would use another angle to refute. Like, that's basically what Mr. Manny Pangilinan did. He went to a different level and tried to elevate the discussion on the economics part of it. Okay. Because previous to that, Mr. Brimo and Ms. Lopez were going after the environmental impact of mining.
So it's very hard to say basically who's right and wrong, because in a sense, both sides are.
Yes. As Mr. Lacson of PCCI said at the very beginning, it's like cheese. There's two sides to everything. So I think it was just a treat to see all these sides being heatedly and passionately debated in a forum like this. I haven't seen a mining forum as well attended as this, and with such heavyweights in business, in Philippine business in general. And I could see us, because we were, Rappler was live streaming this and also live tweeting this a while ago, and we could see and we could feel how passionate people are about mining.
Right. And interestingly, what I also took note of was that Gina Lopez in her speech, and as well as the other critics, mentioned they're not completely anti-mining, the same way those who are pro-mining said they're not, anti-environment. That said, especially after this conference, Do you think that it's possible to get a compromise? They might compromise on different angles. As I mentioned, there are different angles: policy, taxes, environment, and so many other different levels. So it's a matter of which areas or which angles do they compromise in. Okay. And okay. Oh, we're gonna interview her here. Go ahead. Okay. Hello. Sorry, can you help us? Yeah. Can you help us?
Help us what?
How did you find it?
Interesting. And actually, with a little better facilitation, it was actually engaged. The issues.
My family is totally out of context. I mean, what does my family have to do with the mining? And the lady who talked in the end, she's the lawyer for the others. Yeah. So, yeah. No, I'm okay. It's like, but I feel that if we're going to discuss mining, we should stick to the issues and not hit the personal whatever of the person. I feel that's really below the belt.
Did you expect that?
Yeah. In a conference as big as this, yeah, I did.
But from someone who is actually a partner, a business partner of your family, Manny Pangilinan.
Manny is not a business partner of the family. He's in fact a competitor, di ba? Channel 5 is against ABS. Yeah.
In terms of Meralco, I meant.
But we sold Meralco already. I think you have one board seat. Yeah, so we're not, yeah.
How confident are you that the mining EO will be inclusive and will take into consideration the points that your group and your cause have been trying to put forward?
Facts stand for itself. You know, the poorest areas in the country are mining areas. So what are we doing? And then if you look at the details, they really are given a 5-year tax holiday. They don't pay for the value of what they're taking out. They only pay 2% excise. If you look at GDP and the employment, if you look at the actual numbers, there's very little that they give to the country anyway. Those are the figures. So if you're going to be rational and base your policy on facts, that's what the facts say. You know, the incidence of poverty in mining is high. The poorest areas in the country are mining areas. In terms of revenue from the country, we don't get much. What's the net benefit for all the billions of dollars or pesos they're bringing in? What's the net benefit to the country? You know, the fact is our resources are not valued. The cost of extraction, the air, the water, the biodiversity, the agricultural lands, that's not put at value. So how do we even know what we're giving up? And why should we continue this if we don't first evaluate what we're giving up?
So essentially, your positions are based on what
is best for the Filipino. Because we're in Australia, we are which are beautiful. I know, and that's true for the fact that farmers, fishermen, island ecosystems get destroyed. Its spread is far beyond the operation side. And that's the fact.
And you seem to be very personal.
Yeah, I love the environment. I love people. I love my country, and I have experienced eradicating poverty through ecotourism.
And you go.
Yeah, I go on the chopper, no? Yeah, because people call me, so I said, sige, I'll go, no?
Yeah, and then Manny tells you, no, why don't you go to
I'll go. Of course, I'll go. Yeah, sure. You know, that's why I went to Rapu-Rapu, because a miner invited me there. And then when I went, I said, oh my God, is this what they're saying is a good mine? It's in the tip of the island. I mean, it's, I'll go anywhere, you know, my mind's not closed. I haven't seen a good mine yet.
So, what did you say again, ma'am? Your mind is?
My mind is not closed, you know. I'm open to anything which is good for the country and good for our people. But from what I've seen, the mining areas totally screw up the ecological system, and it's not correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Rapid.
Okay, great. Let's see if we close. Hold on. You want us to close?
Oh, why did you go off frame or live?
I'm not. I wasn't there. I wasn't there. Wait. Freaking A. Rupert's like all mad at me because I got off frame now.